this is Becky. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so grateful that you're here for this session. I'm going to be talking about God's plan for a happy marriage. But before I get to that, I wanted to say I had some people that were curious as to why do I share so much help for free? If I need money, why am I helping for free? Well, a couple of reasons. One, that's a mother wound. I grew up having to take care of my parents as well as everybody else around me, so it's just instinctually in me to nurture and mother and help everybody around me, which is something I'm working on, which made sense why I went into teaching and taking care of children and, anyway. Besides it being a wound that I'm healing, I've also been in the position where I've desperately needed help and didn't have the funds to be able to access the resources for that help. And so I know that there's a lot of people that are hurting in this world that really need the information that I share, but just don't have the money to afford to talk to someone to get that information. So again, I'm passionate about helping those that are less fortunate than myself. And I'm a firm believer that no matter how bad you got it, there's somebody else that's got it worse, right? So I also keep that in mind when I'm sharing. And then third of all, I'm an artist, and when I owned my own house, I was responsible for everything as a single mom. So when I had to, do work around the house, I had to figure it out. That didn't come natural. So of course, what do? We YouTube it, we Pinterest, we Google it, we're like, okay. And if you've ever, seen some of the Pinterest fails, you'll see that it's not as easy as it looks to replicate what somebody else is doing. So even though I may go to a hardware store and buy every tool that is necessary to, remodel a bathroom, doesn't mean that when I get home with those tools that I know how to actually use those tools to make that bathroom look in reality what it looks like in my head or on a picture. So the same thing goes for relationships, all relationships of all kinds. You can have in your head what you want that relationship to look like, and you may even have therapists or the tools that I give you, or pamphlets or pastors that are talking to you, or whatever the resources you have available to you, and they might be giving you good advice. You might see my tools and go, yeah, that's exactly what I need. But now how do you take that information and apply it and utilize it in your everyday life to be able to make the changes necessary to have that relationship or that family or that business the way you actually want it to? And so that's where my services really start. Yes, I can sell the tools, but really I want to be the person that helps you build that dream for yourself. So at least get you started in it. Obviously I'm not going to hold your hand forever and help you with it, but at least help you learn how to use those tools and implement them in your unique situation. And then once I see that you're kind of like got the training wheels on and you're kind of going good, then I can let go and you can cruise on down the path that's meant for you. And if you fumble and fail and skin your knee and you need to come back and we need to revisit your plan and what we can do a little differently for you to try it again, then that's what I'm here for. But that's why I give away so much information, which it will start to taper because I do believe that I have a very, very amazing businessman who is going to be coming into my life to help me with this project that I'm working on. He's got a lot of expertise, and I'll share more about him once we finalize the connection. But so thank you for being my knight in shining armor. Because this really is about serving the widest range of people for the biggest impact on humanity, and not just something that is self-serving. And he truly is a servant of the Lord and wants to help me succeed, and has been watching me grow and evolve, and sees the passion that I have for this and wants to help me like he does many, many other people that are in my position. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit more about God's plan for a happy marriage. Now, There are many people out here promoting very different ways, so I'm not trying to push anything onto anybody, but this really truly is what I find to be the most stable foundational blueprint for longevity of a healthy, sustainable relationship. Now, no relationship, marriage is perfect, so you're going to have problems. There's going to be complications. The world's going to try to tear you apart. Lies, deceit, greed, lust. It's all out there. We know that. But this is rooted in God's design, and that ultimately has, throughout the test of time, shown to be the best design for a healthy relationship to evolve into a happy marriage. All right, it says, scores of women have told me with tears in their eyes, my husband just won't talk to me. And I know this because I've had many avoidants come so attracted to me and then just won't speak. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with this. So this is also a personal, not just what I'm dealing with many women and men, but I've actually lived this and experienced it myself. It says, he is distant. He won't share things with me anymore. Even though we share the same house and the same food, I feel so alone most of the time. The breakdown of marriage and family in Western societies is by now legendary. The statistics are terrible, but what would be much worse were it not for the millions of couples choosing to live together without the benefit of marriage. Since there is no marriage, neither is there a recorded divorce if these couples break up, which they do even more quickly than those who bother to get married. After my first marriage, which was a nightmare, I had kind of said, well, sex equals marriage. So if I'm having sex with somebody, that means we're married. And the other person doesn't usually agree with that. So that leaves me in a vulnerable position of being used and abused and tossed aside, and then they upgrade and go somebody else, or downgrade and go somebody else. So that's when I made the switch and said, no, we're going to go back to what God's design is for a healthy relationship and marriage, and really study this and look for it. So then that way my second marriage will be my godly ordained marriage, which will be a covenant. And that will maintain the test of time, because it will be bigger than me and it will be bigger than him. It will not be ego-based. It will not be community-based. It will not be pressure from society. It will be a united front that we will have a mission together to be able to anchor in what God needs us to anchor in throughout the rest of our lifetime together. Because a house divided will fall. So in 1981, the annual divorce rate in the United States reached its peak at 5.3 per 1,000 people, meaning that one of every 189 Americans got a divorce in that year. More recently, the Centers for Disease Control found the annual divorce rate in 2012 had dropped to 3.4, compared to a marriage rate of 6.8 per 1,000. This means that in a year, when 1 in 47 Americans entered into a marriage, 1 in 294 ended a marriage. The devil is out to destroy holy matrimony, and it's been working. So I'm hoping to re-anchor in the belief systems into people and program people to realize that there are still godly ordained marriages out there. But we have to do the inner healing work and allow God to bring our person into our life. And there is a science to it. So for every 2 marriages, there was a divorce. In 2014, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that among Americans 15 and older, 10% were divorced. That amounted to more than 25 million men and women. And even though overall divorce rates have declined in the last few years, a shocking new phenomenon has identified: gray divorces, in which senior citizens abandon decades-long marriages. In 2014, the divorce rate for Americans aged 55 to 64 was 70% higher than the overall rate for adults. Now, in 2018 is when I really got the call from God to like really put myself first, and I had it was to me it was going to lead to a marriage. We'd been together for 5 years, and me and him were good, but everything around us was not good, which then me and him crumbled. So then I decided, all right, I'm going to go celibate. I'm just going to be devoted to God, devoted to what I'm building, devoted to helping the children, building a legacy, taking care of my family, and just really working on myself. And I'll tell you, that actually really has been the best decision I could ever have made, because it's led me to meet some really amazing people in healthier ways than when I would be all like attracting in people, and we'd be bubbly, we'd go out for a date and we'd go to dinner or whatever, and then I'd never hear from them again. And I'd be like, okay. And then it lowers your self-esteem, right? It lowers your self-confidence. It shakes up your inner foundation. And so I just find that modern dating really wasn't something that I was made to do. And then I said, okay, if somebody wants to talk to me, it's going to be in a work type relationship. Like, what are you building? What am I building? Can I help you build? Are you helping me build? And then we stay connected that way, and we keep it like friend level. And I find that is the easiest way to be able to get through life with maintaining a sense of peace and joy and self-respect, which is key in being able to bring in your kingdom spouse when the time is right. So there are millions who previously divorced who have since remarried. Tens of millions of Americans have at one time or another gone through the trauma of divorce, and other tens of millions have been deeply hurt by divorce. And that includes your children, your close relatives, your friends, your associates. It is sad to say that divorce as American as apple pie. And I know when I was trying to date, I would explain to the men, I'd be like, I'm a package deal. So, and it doesn't matter how old my children are. Even though that they're adults and I have grandchildren now, I'm still a package deal. So there's a lot of men who were interested in a relationship with me. In fact, I had one that wanted to marry me, but didn't want to have anything to do with my children. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And he's like, well, what if we get married? Me and you will live in the townhouse next door to your kids. And they were like in middle school. And I was just like, no, that's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But in this day and age, this is the kind of illogical thinking that is out there. That a lot of men, and I don't want to say all, but a lot of men are just single-minded on what I need, what do I want, how does she make me feel, how does she play into what I want, and then disregard everything else. And so for me, it's like, I'm sorry, that's not how I operate. Like, my children will always be my children. My grandchildren will always be part of my life. Like, the family that I have doesn't just go away because a man shows up and now he becomes the center of my world. It really doesn't work that way. So what does God say? But what does God say? But what does God have to say about divorce and about the real meaning and purpose of marriage? This is vital to understand, for history shows us that any nation whose society allows or causes its families to come apart soon begins to disintegrate. Most historians note that the breakdown of the family was one of the symptoms, if not causes, of the fall of the Roman Empire. And we read countless articles describing how young people in fatherless homes tend to turn to drugs, illicit sex, and crime far more than do those raised in stable families. So I want to try to bring back those old values of stable core families and soul families that are working together, right? Census data from 2010 revealed that the number of American children living in single-parent homes has almost doubled since 1960. About 1/3 of American children, roughly 15 million, are growing up in a fatherless household. Another 5 million have no mother present in their lives. And I know my kids used to get jealous because I was like, any kids around, I was mothering them. It just comes natural to me. And so there would be times where my kids' friends would call me mom, and my kids would get so mad. That's my mom, that's not your mom. And then I'd have to calm them down and say, listen, for this moment during this event, or if I took them camping with us, or we went to the drive-in, or whatever it was, I'd be like, let's just let them have that. We're not going to upset them because maybe their mom isn't being a good mom, right? Or maybe they don't have a mom, or maybe their mom died, or maybe their mom's in jail, or maybe their mom's drinking or on drugs. Like, we don't know. And so it's okay, for them to call me mom while they're with me in that moment. And so then they kind of got used to it, but they were still very possessive, which was super cute. No wonder we see so many acts of seemingly random violence carried out by lonely, aimless, directionless young people. Lacking strong authority figures and the security of a loving and complete family, millions turn to crime, hedonism, or despair. We have produced a self-absorbed me generation and a morally adrift Generation X. I happen to be a part of Generation X, so I don't know if I should be offended by the morally adrift part, but it is what it is. What will come next in our youth-obsessed society? In a dual prophecy that certainly refers in type to our day, the prophet Isaiah was inspired to write, I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. The people will be oppressed, every one by another, and every one by his neighbor. The child will be insolent toward the elder, and the base toward the honorable. Isaiah 3:4-5. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul describes that in the last days, perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And from such people turn away. 2 Timothy 3:1-5. People are unthankful, unholy, unforgiving, and disobedient to parents are very unlikely to have strong, stable, loving marriages. What we all need then are keys to building God-centered marriages and principles as to how He would have us live together joyously as husbands and wives. The following are just godly principles gleaned from 6 decades of pastoral and family counseling, much reading and studying, and more than 50 years of happy marriage. I just want to say that I think what breaks my heart the most is to see how corrupt even some of the people who go to church, who are your upstanding citizens, quote unquote, try to hide so much anger and hate towards the opposite gender, who try to oppress and suppress people's voices, control their authenticity, smash whatever it is they're trying to build just because they can. We are at the end of times, and I know that, I sound like, someone standing on a street corner with a cardboard sign saying Jesus is real. But in these times, I think my audience is going to understand that I'm speaking truth. I am here to break the mold of the false light matrix, because I can see through those that are pretending to be godly, and it is an act. And I can see those who have genuinely been through the darkness to find the light, and then become the light and lead people out of the darkness. That's what we need more of. So Jesus sat with sinners because we're all sinners. So if you think that you're better than somebody else, then you're just judging them because they sin differently from you. That doesn't make you better than them. You don't have the right to lie about them, project things out into the community that then make them not be able to gain employment, not be able to work, spread lies about their mental health, their sexuality. There is so much going on, and I've experienced this myself, which again is one of the reasons why I have so much frustration and animosity that I've had to process and purge and heal with this particular community, because the lies, the slander, the inability for me to thrive because people don't like me, because I'm weird, because I'm different, because I'm neurodivergent, because I can see through the things. And I'm not afraid to call them out on it. So of course they want to kill and destroy that which is going to reveal the ugliness inside of them. And God sees it anyway. I'm just saying, wipe off your own mirror. I'm wiping off my own mirror to see more clearly, to be in alignment with God's God designed for me. I need more people to start wiping their own mirrors clear and taking off rose-colored glasses and stop silencing themselves. Because believe me, I did it for years and years and years because I had children to protect. And this community was attacking not only me, but attacking my children as well. So a mother who's having to protect her children are going to put up with a lot more than they should. And now that my children are successful, they're grown, they're doing their own thing, they are amazing people in this world, I no longer have to keep my mouth shut. I no longer have to put up with the crap that I've been putting up with for all these years. And I'm allowed to say no more. And I'm able to help other people that are finally finding their voice, standing in their truth, speaking out what they want in their lifetime. We're going to command that God's will be done. And God wants God-centered marriages back. So, unless the Lord builds the house, thy labor in vain who built it. Psalm 127:1. Many of you reading this may need to go back and prove again to yourselves the reality of God, for we certainly did not just happen. Our human minds were obviously created by something greater than ourselves. The pervasive laws all around us, such as the laws of gravity, inertia, and thermodynamics, all demand a great lawgiver. The magnificent designs of our human bodies and of the plants, animals, and heavenly bodies demand a great designer. The inspired prophecies of the Bible, which have been and now are being fulfilled, all demand the reality of a personal God who sits at the controls of the universe and actually intervenes in his creation. A God who is working out a supreme purpose here on earth. And as you come to know that very real God, you will increasingly understand that he really does know what is best for you and for every area of your life. Certainly including your marriage, for he is the one who created us male and female. He is the one who created our bodies and minds and who specifically designed the differences between us and even the different ways that men and women think and view the world around them. You don't kill people just because they think differently than you. You don't take away their financial resources and their careers and their livelihood just because you don't like them. That is not in God's design. The great Creator made man and woman for one another. He certainly knows, better than all the psychologists and marriage counselors put together, how our bodies and minds work and how we can best relate to one another in marriage. The Holy Bible tells us that the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Genesis 2:7. A little later, we read that the Lord said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." Verse 18. Man alone is not complete. Adam felt that incompleteness and utter loneliness. He had no one of his kind to talk to or to share things with. He had no one to love and to cherish, to hold and to have, no one with whom, to the depths of his being, he could feel that he really belonged. Our Heavenly Father understood this. So God put Adam to sleep and literally took one of Adam's ribs and made it into a woman. Of course, God could have done it another way, but he chose to show both male and female that we ultimately belong together, right? You have to fit together. And the man is the container. The man decides the environment. The man creates the scenarios that the women live in. So if you want your woman to worship you and love you and take care of you and nurture you, you can't expect her to live in hell. You have to create a heaven where she can thrive, and then that gets poured back into you. But if you create a hostile environment, then you're going to get a very different version of that woman. Okay, so, lost my place. Here we go. He chose to show both male and female that we ultimately belong together. So God took something from Adam's side, near Adam's heart, and made Eve. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman," translated from the Hebrew Isha. Again, I'm sorry if I say that wrong. Because she was taken out of man, translated from Hebrew, Hish, verse 23. And so God made a helper comparable to Adam, verse 20, one to whom he could truly relate and share his thoughts, his plans, his hopes, and his dreams. So when you are a married man or a married woman, and you're sharing your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams with somebody outside of your marriage, you're cheating. That's emotional cheating. The only person that you should be relying on is your godly ordained husband or wife. I'm sorry, the world wants to tell you different. There is no such thing as a work wife, okay? That's cheating, especially if you touch them. But even if you're sharing your thoughts and your feelings, that's cheating. God's purpose in marriage. It is vital that we understand from the very beginning that man and woman were created by God. They were to share life together in love. Yet the woman was made to be a helper to the man. She was made from man, and despite all the pronouncements of the modern experts, a woman can find her greatest joy and fulfillment in relating to helping, supplementing, and assisting her husband in their life together, in bearing children, and in managing a household. I was forced, for the safety of me and my children, to leave my husband. After 10 years of trying and trying and trying. It was out of safety. I wanted us to live. And so we had to leave, okay? So I didn't want to have to become head of the household, but I didn't have a choice. And that's why God is saying it's very important to do your inner healing and really have the insight when you're choosing a mate, because it can be life or death, depending on who you choose. And so I guess that's why I've just been a commitment phobe of like committing to another marriage, because I'm like, what if I choose wrong again? Now, I was 17 and he and I, knew no other people. So it was just me and him, and it was like, oh, okay, now we're going to get married. Totally different scenario. I'm older now, wiser now, and I have discernment. And so I have a much better compass for choosing a mate. And so now I have more confidence to be able to start navigating those waters again. But I really do stress celibacy really is your answer, and then you really get to know somebody and have them court you, and then decide if that's going to be someone that you can actually have a marriage that will last the test of time. Because it's really important that you guys don't compete in your marriage. It really needs to be complementary. You have to support each other, but in different ways. A very real Satan, the devil, is doing all he can to obliterate this concept from the minds of young people today. Through many psychologists and marriage counselors, through much of the media, and even through the educational system, Satan is busily attacking God's plan for the family. He is vigorously pumping out the concept that mankind was not created by a real God. He wants us to believe that we just happened to evolve, and there is no supreme purpose for our lives, and that men and women are not essentially different in many ways, so it does not make any difference as to the roles they play and which one is the leader in the family. And I refuse to marry a man that wants me to be the leader of the family. I refuse. Won't do it. I believe very strongly in my morals and belief system, and nobody's going to convince me that I'm wrong on this. Now Satan has even begun to influence certain segments of our society to accept the idea that a family need not consist of a husband and a wife. It may be two or more people of the same sex just living together. However, if you believe the Bible, notice what Jesus said about marriage. Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let no man, woman, or child separate." You and your spouse should be a united force. Nobody should come between you guys. Matthew 19:4-6. Jesus puts God squarely in the picture. He shows that God did create the first woman for the first man. He then caused them to come together as man and wife to become one flesh in this God-ordained relationship. God intends all marriages to follow this example. Jesus explained that only because of the hardness of their hearts did God permit a husband and wife to divorce, and that was only for sexual immorality. Jesus clearly referred to Genesis' creation story as a fact. Jesus acknowledged that God made us male and female. Verse 4. Again, Jesus said regarding marriage that what God has joined together, let no man separate. Verse 6. If this profound realization that is God who ordained marriage is at the very heart of your marriage, you will have an infinitely better chance at success. Certainly a man ought not to marry a woman unless he really and truly loves her. Yet sorrowfully, we must acknowledge that millions of men have never learned the meaning to the word love. Because of shallow movies and wrong examples, they are all too often learned to confuse love with lust. They seem to think that a base animal sexual desire to get satisfaction from another person of the opposite sex constitutes love. Nothing could be further from the truth, for true love involves a giving, a sharing of plans, hopes, dreams between two people who want to build an entire life together until death do them part. If they are not able to talk things over, if you can't communicate, if you can't smile into each other's eyes, share the little joys and all the intimacies, and stick together when the big trials come, their love is then lost. The Apostle Paul commanded, "Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter towards them." Colossians 3:19. Some husbands do allow themselves quickly to become bitter because their wives do not measure up to an angelic idol of perfection envisioned in their own human imaginations. But a wife was never intended to be an idol. So ladies, listen up. You weren't supposed to be the man's idol. She was never designed to be perfect in his life any more than her husband was. She was not intended to be a perfect housekeeper, mother, companion, and Hollywood sex goddess all wrapped up into one individual. Rather, she was designed and created by the maker of us all to be a sweetheart, help, and an inspiration to a man who would share himself with her, Go over his plans, hopes, dreams with her. Give her encouragement and guidance, and lead, not drive, not control, their home in an attitude with confidence and love. All too often, especially in our modern world, men seem to think that it is up to the little woman to talk about the spiritual things and get the children interested in matters concerning God and the church. This is not true, and any man who fails his God-given responsibility in this is simply selling out his own birthright. For God intended the man, if he will act on his responsibilities and opportunities, to be the spiritual leader in the home. Notice this inspired scriptural statement. But I want you to know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. 1 Corinthians 11:3. Every man alive has the opportunity to be the direct representative of God over his own home, in teaching, instructing, leading, and inspiring his wife and children to learn and obey the words of the Holy Bible and to worship and serve the God who made them. Most wives and children will instantly and gladly respond if given half a chance. Men need to realize this. They must set a dynamic example of dedication to their Creator, study of His Word, prayer to God at meal times, and family prayer, as well as private prayer on one's knees in the bedroom, closet, or other private place. The man should set an example of self-discipline in the fear of God. He should show that he is man enough, strong enough to conquer his lusts and control his appetites. By conquering his smoking habit, by controlling his drinking and other appetites, by restraining his emotions and directing them in the right channels, by controlling and guiding his tongue according to the law of kindness, he can set an example that will never be forgotten by his sons and daughters as they grow up. And this example will certainly command the respect, admiration, and love of any sensitive, wise woman. So, if you will truly study the Bible to see what it says about marriage, and if you will strive with God's help to follow the biblical teachings, principles, and examples in your marriage, you will be blessed indeed. If a newly married couple would get down on their knees and sincerely beseech God to lead and guide in their marriage, and then study His inspired word and follow it, they would have a kind of heaven on earth, at least as far as their marriage was concerned. As much as this may surprise some who are not familiar with God's ways, this is a fact. I have seen these principles work in this way in other marriages. I'm hoping to experience that in my next marriage, which will be my last marriage. I got one more shot in me to try. To the degree that we follow this teaching, it works. It behooves every one of us to make God the very center of our marriage. Wholeheartedly seek to find His will in every aspect of your marriage and then follow it. One of the traditional marriage ceremonies includes the expression, "Death till death do us part." Although many young people today disdain this notion, it is absolutely vital that every marriage we build on this Although many young people today disdain this notion, it is absolutely vital that every marriage be built on this understanding. There you go. As we have seen, it is God who ordained marriage. It is Jesus Christ who said, "Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate." Matthew 19:6. Although modern psychologists, counselors, and even many professing Christian ministers seem anxious to provide married couple with all kinds of escape hatches, God does not. Yes, sexual immorality is a God-acknowledged grounds for divorce, but it is God's expressed will that marriage be a lifelong commitment. Notice this key passage in God's revelation to mankind. And this is the second thing you do. You cover the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping and crying, so He does not regard the offering anymore, nor receive it with goodwill from your hands. Yet you say, "For what reason?" because the Lord has been witness between you and your wife of your youth, with whom you have dealt treacherously. Yet she is your companion and your wife by covenant. But did he not make them one, having a remnant of spirit? And why one? He seeks godly offspring. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously with your wife of your youth. For the Lord God of Israel says that he hates divorce, for it covers one garment with violence, says the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that you do not deal treacherously. Malachi 2:13-16. In the above verses, God speaks of marriage being a covenant relationship. He shows that one of the purposes of marriage is to produce godly offspring. Obviously, a stable and loving relationship is necessary in order to provide this. 3 times in the passage, God speaks of one behaving treacherously and breaking up a marriage. Among other things, marriage is a test. It is a test to see how loyal you will be to God's instruction regarding marriage and to your mate with whom you share this sanctified relationship. How much will you give to yourself to this other human being? How much will you be patient, kind, and humble in order to make it work? Additionally, God says that he hates divorce, verse 16. God does not hate divorced people, but he despises the selfishness, the lust, the vanity, the self-centeredness, and the treachery that is nearly always present when marriage is ruptured by divorce. The powerful, God-inspired teaching of the Apostle Paul must be taken into account in every marriage. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ has loved the church and gave himself for her. Ephesians 5:22-25. These verses clearly show that marriage is a type of relationship between Christ and the church. The relationship is one of total submission to one another and to the will of God. It is to be a lasting relationship, lasting till death do us part. It is to picture the love, the total outflowing concern, and the resulting trust and stability that exists between Christ and his true church. And I want to add a little thing here. I will never submit to anyone but God and my godly ordained spouse. So there's a lot of men in this world and women that want to humble me and try to make me bow to them, serve them, and somehow be submissive to them, and I refuse. The only people that I will serve and obey and be submissive to is the Lord and my godly ordained spouse. So let me throw that in there, that you do not have to be submissive to every person in your life, right? God comes first. Your godly ordained spouse comes second. To have this kind of God-ordained relationship in your marriage, you must both work at it. You will need to put the thought and energy into building your marriage that a top scientist might expend on an important new invention. Truly happy and successful couples never take their marriages for granted. Truly, Christian couples regularly pray about their marriages. They study the Bible and other sources to improve their marriages. And they make a mutual commitment to make their marriages last till death do us part. All of this builds within their marriage a sense of trust and stability. Indeed, as the author of Proverbs wrote, "Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life." Proverbs 31:10-12. I will never give my man a reason not to trust me. Never. And I expect the same in return. What a beautiful picture of loving service and commitment on the part of a godly wife. Such a wife ought to be deeply appreciated and treasured. A man with a truly loving wife should certainly respond in kind by laying down his life for his mate, loving her, honoring her, protecting her, providing for her, and serving her in every way he can. And any decent husband should never, ever, ever let his mind or his emotions get involved romantically with another woman. Period. End of story. Jesus Christ calls this kind of lustful thinking adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Matthew 5:28. If acted upon, such a treacherous deed will not only devastate his wife and probably wreck their marriage, it will bring about a depth of sorrow and agony, let alone anger, to the husband of the other woman. The one who made us male and female tells us, whoever commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. He who does so destroys his own soul. Proverbs 6:32. The original Hebrew is sometimes translated lacks heart instead of lacks understanding. For such ill-conceived, rotten, totally selfish behavior will virtually tear the heart out of a loving husband who finds that he has been defrauded and dishonored in this way. Certainly, the same thing happens to a wife who finds herself defrauded, for the deep feelings of love and trust, of hearth and home, of deep commitment and security are suddenly shattered. No wonder this passage continues, for jealousy is a husband's fury. Therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will accept no recompense, nor will he be appeased, though you give many gifts. Verse 34-35. All of us who are married or who may in the future be married should make a profound commitment to honor our marriage vows in every way. We should study God's word on this subject, pray daily regarding our marriage and our family, thank God regularly if we have a loving and faithful mate, and do all within our power with God's help to build a deep sense of love, of trust, and of stability within our marriage. Live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life, which he has given you under the sun, all your days of vanity, for that is your portion in life, and in the labor which you perform under the sun. Ecclesiastes 9:9. In this physical life, there is no greater blessing than this kind of sanctified relationship. As stated earlier, scores of women have cried out to me in despair. My husband just won't talk to me. Often, at least one of the partners thinks that he or she communicates, but the other partner, normally the woman, knows that they do not and feels alone and frustrated. She senses that she and her husband are simply coexisting in the same house. They do not necessarily fight and hurt each other physically or even verbally, but there is not the openness, the closeness, the total sharing of two lives, the love that there should be. One article on the subject quoted a woman discussing her 10-year marriage who said, "It's heartbreaking. Before I was married, I used to go out to restaurants, and just by looking around the room, I could tell who was married and who wasn't. Either the married couples were eating in dead silence, or the woman was gabbing away while the man ate and pretended she wasn't there. I swore that this would never happen to me, but it has." The Good News, October 1967. Why such cases as the above? Why do husbands and wives of all people fail to communicate more fully with one another? Loving means sharing. Every husband worthy of the name ought to cultivate the habit of talking over his plans and hopes with his wife, sharing with her many of his innermost thoughts and desires, not just the negative ones, and making her feel deeply a part of him. This very attitude and approach means more to a woman than most men can even realize. Yet very few husbands share their lives in this way with their mates. Why? Newlyweds often work hard at learning and adjusting to each other's attitudes and preferences. They take pleasure in exchanging opinions on almost everything. After a few months, however, the opinions are all exchanged, the attitudes seemingly understood, and the interest and excitement of getting to know you is over. As the marriage continues and children come along, the wife's interest and talk is increasingly about her children and myriad of domestic details that usually hold little or no interest for her husband. The couple often take for granted each other's attitudes on certain topics rather than bothering to discuss them. Most husbands care to hear only good news about their children and are either irritated or bored if the wife confides in them the detailed problems involved in rearing their family. Wives usually miss their husbands most when the children are small. Having no adult in the house to talk to all day, such wives feel an urgent necessity to talk with their spouses at night. But many husbands retreat behind their papers or quietly turn on the television rather than endure what they feel is a boring rehash of household frustrations. A man needs to treat his wife as a sweetheart. He needs to cultivate and build an atmosphere of love, romance, and intimacy in their home, kissing his wife when he returns from work, holding her hand as they are taking walks, and embracing her often throughout the day with free and lavish affection. True love certainly involves deep and abiding respect. A man ought to be grateful and thankful that the woman who is in his life has decided to cleave to him above all others unto death. He ought to appreciate that fact and the many, many good qualities of help, patience, and service that practically every wife possesses. He ought to encourage and bring out the best in her, not constantly harp and carp away at her in belittling criticism that only causes her, in most cases, to degenerate and respond in kind. A man ought to respect the fact that his wife is an adult human being made in the image of God. He needs to realize that someday, according to the awesome plan of our great God, she is intended to become a glorified spirit being ruling with Christ over his earth, even managing the angels. 1 Corinthians 6:3. With this kind of understanding and respect, every truly Christian husband should share his thoughts, his plans, and his life with the lovely human being he has chosen to be his life partner. My wife is my best friend should not be merely a cliche, it should be a reality. A mate who is a real friend helps us build our self-esteem, encourages us through hard times, and keeps us from being lonely. Couples who can discuss honestly whatever is important to them, including their own relationship, are happier and much more likely to have a lasting marriage. Even though there is a perceived risk in self-disclosure, getting the problems out in the open is much better than allowing festering hurts and misunderstandings to grow. Remember that listening to your mate's innermost hurts and concerns does not automatically call for your judgment or for your advice. Often, it is better just to be someone to talk to. Then over time, your mate will usually solicit your advice or comment. But let that be done on their initiative, not yours. Of course, you need to show love and concern. You need to be willing to take time to really listen to your mate, showing genuine interest in what your sweetheart is saying and is going through. In this process, learn to ask questions and draw your mate out so you can more fully understand the situation. Tell me more. I see. Do I understand that this is what you're saying? I hadn't realized that. Please help me understand more completely so I can share your concern. And similar words of loving concern. Never, never take advantage of your mate's openness or self-disclosure. Then he or she will close up like a clam in the future. Regard the verbal intimacies that you share in marriage as a sacred trust, to be kept confidential, just between the two of you, and never to be used as a club to gain advantage in a later argument or any other situation. I wouldn't tell anybody in the family any of your complaints about your spouse, because they will hold it against your spouse even when you're over it. So praising and encouraging your mate is vital. Be sure your praise is sincere and usually specific. Praising your wife for lovingly preparing a special meal. Praising your husband for usually getting up first and warming up the home. These are examples of the kind of thoughtfulness and encouraging remarks that can inspire your mate and build love and appreciation within your marriage. In fact, think about the word appreciation. I can never forget the constant expressions of thankfulness and appreciation uttered by my own mother. It made all of us in the family love and appreciate her more, and I am sure it contributed a great deal to the happiness and the stability of my parents' long and happy marriage. Oh, that's not mine, that was the author. Remember that in marriage especially, you should try to keep communication positive. For one partner to be constantly picking at or criticizing the other is not the kind of communication we are talking about. This type of negative harping is destructive to a marriage and should be avoided at all costs. A man is absolutely stupid to be continually arguing and correcting his wife. How can she respond to him as a loving sweetheart when she is regularly put down and corrected by her husband? And the Bible makes it very plain that the wife is equally wrong if she continually complains, gripes, and argues with her husband. Better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. Proverbs 21:9. Again, the loving, positive flow of communication, information, and sharing of plans and dreams between a husband and wife is the very essence of a happy marriage. Think about it. Even God shares his hopes and plans with us puny mortal beings. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all things that I heard from my Father I have made known to you. John 15:15. If the living Jesus Christ was concerned enough to share all things with us that he heard from the God our Father, how much more should we be willing to open up and share our thoughts and our dreams with our own mates? In your walks, talks, laughter, and tears, go back together and relive the thoughts of your young boy who sat on a hillside looking at the sky and dreaming of the future. Discuss and analyze those dreams lovingly and understandingly with one another. Then work and pray together to make them come true. In like manner, relive the hopes and aspirations of a young girl who often walked alone at sunset across her father's land, dreaming of a husband and a home of her own someday, of children, security, warmth, laughter, and joy. Be sure you work together to make her dreams come true. Learn to respond to one another openly and lovingly. Have no improper secrets. Bear no grudges. This is your only life, your only mate, your only love. Learn to think and feel in unison, solving all your problems together as a team. The mutual encouragement and stimulation you will feel, along with the added warmth and love you will experience, will add an extra dimension of understanding, purpose, and joy to your life that cannot be obtained in any other way. Truly, it is not good that man should be alone. Genesis 2:18. More than any human being ever has, Jesus Christ exemplified the love of God. He did it in many, many different ways, but one of the greatest and most obvious ways is that he gave his life willingly and poured out his shed blood in order to be our Savior. As we have seen, the relationship between Christ and the true church pictures the relationship between husband and wife. After a lifetime of giving and serving at the end of his human life, Jesus Christ gave himself for the church. So all husbands are instructed. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ has loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. Ephesians 5:25-28. Normally, each of us just naturally thinks about his own needs. We take care of our own desires. We cater to what pleases us. But since God has made us one flesh in marriage, we need to learn to think that way. To constantly consider the needs and the desires of our mates and how to take care of our other half. This involves thinking, planning, and self-discipline. It involves the giving of oneself to another human being. That is what marriage is all about. One of the most meaningful sayings of Jesus Christ is found not in the Gospels, but in a statement of Apostle Paul recorded in his book, the book of Acts. I should have shown you in every way by laboring like this that you must support the weak. And remember the words of our Lord Jesus, that he said, It is more blessed to give than to receive. Acts 20:35. In marriage, especially, it really is more blessed to give, for in most cases, the more you give, the more you get. As you genuinely try to encourage, to serve, and to give, you will find that your mate will tend to reciprocate. You will both be giving, you will both be serving, you will both be pleased and even delighted at the warmth and appreciation this virtuous cycle creates in your marriage. Each husband must carefully think through how he can increase his wife's joy and fulfillment of life. Perhaps he can help her with the dishes and the housework at times. Most likely, he should do virtually all the heavy lifting chores around the home. Perhaps he can encourage her to get more sleep, more exercise, more recreation, or a change of pace. If the family can afford it, maybe he can take her out to dinner once or twice a week, or on occasional weekend honeymoon trips to get her away from the normal routine and work. Surely he can try to enrich his wife's life and his own by taking her to symphony concerts, art museums, educational lectures, and other uplifting places. Whatever may be appropriate in each individual situation, all of these things and more are ways a husband may give to his wife. In turn, a wife should often think about how she can enrich her husband's happiness and his physical, emotional, and intellectual life. Perhaps she can prepare his favorite meals more often. She may want to encourage him to get more exercise and sleep, and to take care of himself so he will be around longer. Perhaps she can take a nap in the afternoon or after work, or take a quick shower and change clothes so she will look and feel alert and pretty each evening like she did when they were courting. She can encourage him to share his opinions about current events or about spiritual subjects. In whatever ways, she can respond generously to his affection and try to make him feel 10 feet tall and extremely grateful to have married such a loving wife. You may have heard that a marriage is supposed to be a 50-50 proposition. You go halfway, your spouse goes halfway. But who determines what constitutes the halfway point if the two of you disagree? True love, by contrast, means giving without expecting anything in return, giving 100%, and being willing to go above and beyond what you think is expected of you. Christ talked about this principle of going the extra mile when he said, "And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2." Matthew 5:41. Yes, even if you do not humanly feel like it, go the extra mile and give to your spouse. God will add what you lack. Ask him to help you give more affection, love, and respect to your spouse, and in time you will be blessed with the rewards and benefits of an improved marriage. So think about ways that you can give to your mate. Little gifts or words of appreciation make a big difference. An unexpected hug or a kiss, requiring little effort on your part, may be a treasured gift in the eyes of your spouse. A simple question such as, "How was your day?" may be a welcomed gift of attention to your spouse, providing a chance to share private thoughts and feelings. I know a busy couple who nevertheless makes time to show each other their mutual love and concern. One evening while the wife was serving dinner, she asked her husband, "Is there anything else you need?" The husband smiled and said, "I need your love," and she smiled. He pushed back the chair, she sat on her husband's lap, and they hugged and kissed. That kind of spontaneity, that eagerness to give to one another, helps to generate an atmosphere of love and peace. It is not always romantic and is not always idealistic, but night and day, year after year, a happy couple will strive to give of themselves to each other. Each will try to help his or her mate achieve the full human potential God intends in every possible way. For we do not get a happy marriage unless we learn to give a happy marriage. Another absolute imperative in a truly happy marriage is that the willingness to forgive. When two people share their entire lives, when they are together much of each day and night, there is bound to be friction occasionally. We are, after all, only human, and by far the best way to solve this real problem is God's way. To sulk, to brood, to conjure up evil thoughts about your mate, or attribute to your mate wrong motives is totally senseless. It only breeds more trouble, more discontent, and possibly even divorce. Certainly, as we have said, you need to talk about your hurts and misunderstandings. Try to really listen to your mate's point of view, not just sit there and think about what you're going to say next. Do not just think about how you're going to get back at them or get even. Get even? Get even with whom? If you fully grasp and accept the fact that you and your mate are one flesh and bound together by God for life, then you would be trying to get even with yourself. You would simply be hurting yourself. You would, in effect, be counterattacking yourself. So, if after a family argument or a hearty discussion with your mate about some hurt, real or imagined, you still feel upset or angry with your mate, what should you do? Again, you simply need to do what God says you always need to do in such situations. Forgive the other person. But it was really their fault, we find ourselves saying. And besides, they haven't even apologized to me, so how can I forgive them? Through heartfelt prayer and God's guidance, you can learn to forgive all kinds of people for all kinds of real or imagined wrongs they have inflicted on you. That other driver cutting you off at the freeway exit, the child next door playing his rock music way too loud into the night, or the neighbor lady gossiping about you. Speaking of actions far, far worse than any of these, the one for who is our ultimate example, Jesus Christ said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23:34. All of us must come to realize that most people do not mean to hurt us. They do not mean to do evil. They are simply human. They blurt out hurtful words or take harmful actions without thinking through what they are really doing, and so often it hurts. But the one who gave his life for us reveals that if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Matthew 6:14-15. If then we are to forgive every person in this way, how much more should we forgive our precious mate who has now become our own flesh and bone? What if your husband keeps on tracking in dirt from the yard or grease from the garage? What if your wife keeps on burning the toast once or twice a week? Learn to approach your mate constructively and talk it over, of course. But if some of these human foibles persist, even for years, just keep right on forgiving. After all, would you rather scrape your burnt toast once in a while or live alone? Do your own cooking and have no one to talk to or cuddle with on cold, wintry nights. Never forget what Jesus commanded. Then Peter came to him and said, "Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? And Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Matthew 18:21-22. We all need to regularly ask God in prayer to give us the spirit of forgiveness. Some people seem to have a terribly hard time forgiving others. It is almost as though they enjoy carrying hurts and grudges around with them for years. Remember, your anger toward other human beings usually does not hurt them at all. In fact, they may not even be aware of it, and some of them actually enjoy it. I know a lot of times I find out that people like to upset me, and so I've had to really learn how to not allow it. But it does hurt you. It does make you grumpy, miserable, and often hard to live with. Professionals have found that these negative emotions often contribute to ulcers, stomach upsets, high blood pressure, stroke, even heart attack, causes PTSD, CPTSD, all kinds of mental health issues. So your negative emotions can literally kill you. Again, ask your Heavenly Father to help you get completely over this tendency and learn to love and to forgive all people, especially your own mate. Try to change your pattern of thinking so that you don't get hurt so easily. Remember that God is called the Father of Mercies, 2 Corinthians 1:3. As you realize your own need to be forgiven again and again, ask God to help you forgive others. The Apostle Peter was inspired to instruct all men to honor their wives as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. 1 Peter 3:7. Peter then proceeds to give instructions that apply to our entire Christian lives, but especially to our marriages. Finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another. Love as brothers, be tenderhearted, be courteous, not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. For he who would love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. Verse 8-11. We all need to view marriage as a kind of workshop to teach us how to give, how to share, and how to forgive others on a continuing basis. As we study the above verses carefully, it becomes obvious that God wants us to learn to treat our mates with special kindness and courtesy. Yet in most marriages, each partner quickly learns to take the other for granted, so each mate tends to let down and to speak disrespectfully and bluntly to each other. Each partner may forget how easy it is to hurt the other by thoughtless words and actions, and each may forget how vitally important it is in marriage to seek peace and pursue it. Think about it. Think about how hard it probably is for your mate to put up with all the acts of personal selfishness and the idiosyncrasies that you and all of us have. If the situation were reversed, would you want to be put up with you? None of us can be joyful if we carry hurts and grudges around with us, especially toward our mates. So with God's help, learn to completely forgive your mate on a daily basis and move forward together to build a genuinely close and loving relationship. Building a happy marriage should also include the idea of building a family kingdom. An old saying goes, a man's home is his castle. This analogy should apply to his entire family where he is the king, his wife, the beloved queen, and his children, the royal princes and princesses who need training to fulfill their future responsibilities. So the parents enthusiastically work together to ensure that these future leaders are carefully nurtured, guided, disciplined, and trained for the important roles they must play in years to come. The intelligent and joyous blending of these two concepts in marriage, the open and loving union of the bodies, hearts, and minds of the married couple, and the creation of the vital family kingdom can and should produce an opportunity and an atmosphere where men and women can find complete fulfillment. This fulfillment is pictured in the Psalms. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. Your wife shall be like a fruitful vine in the very heart of your house, your children like olive plants all around your table. Psalm 128, 1-3. Once you fully grasp these concepts relating to the meaning and the purpose of marriage, why not set about building your marriage and your home around them? Instead of the husband and wife being bored and disinterested in sharing each other's thoughts, both should be vitally interested in the miniature family kingdom that together they are energetically building. There should be a purposeful common interest in teaching and improving their home and their financial position, as well as in planning for the future, their future. In a truly happy marriage, it is not my house, my car, or even my paycheck. Rather, the attitude should be our house, our income, and our future. The mutual attitude should constantly be forward-looking and planning for improvements in your castle, your home. The wife's feelings and her understanding and expertise in home decorating, landscaping, appliances, etc. should always be taken into account. Every major purchase, such as the home or car, should be a family project, affording the opportunity and benefit of sharing experience between the husband and wife. Nothing to talk about? Nope. Everything to talk about and share. That is the correct answer. Without being silly or unrealistic about it, husbands and wives should think of themselves as partners in a great adventure in building a career, a business, and a life together. They should talk over details regarding their mutual allies, their friends, business associates, and relatives. With both husband and wife entering wholly into discussion, they should plan their mutual strategy and discuss in detail what each contribute to bring their goals in life closer to reality. Then there are the children. What an area of discussion, planning, and mutual problem solving, and heartfelt sharing of hopes and dreams that they provide. Setting family goals together regularly can indeed produce a very meaningful togetherness. If both husband and wife are working, they may wish to have detailed discussions about how to set aside enough money so that after a few years the wife can stop working and they can have the children. Later, they both need to discuss together how they can financially and otherwise plan for the time when the husband or wife or both of them may have to retire. How can they afford to do this? Where can they move to reduce expenses? What kind of lifestyle will give both of them the fulfillment they need as these events unfold? Can they develop a home-based business where they can continue to earn at least a modest income even after one or both of them retire? If a husband and wife think of themselves as a team, their marriage can mean so much more. They will each be contributing on a regular basis to the family kingdom. They will each be giving, building, and sharing the great adventure of life together in a special way. We are discussing romance last of all. Though it is the catalyst that draws young couples together, it often makes them forget the importance of the other aspects of marriage, many of which we have just discussed. However, we must be certain not to leave romance out of the picture, for no matter how long two people have been married, no matter how old they seem to be, the deep human need for romantic love and affection is still there in most individuals. The desire to kiss and to cuddle, to have and to hold, is almost as basic in many people as breathing in and breathing out, and there is nothing wrong with that. The great God who made us male and female specifically designed our sexual parts. He made males and females attractive to one another. He created within us the feelings and emotions that lead to sexual expression. What was God's first recorded command to Adam and Eve? Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it." Genesis 1:28. Note that in granting our first parents the gift of sex and human reproduction, God blessed them. If rightly used within the confines of marriage, sex is indeed a blessing. In a physical sense, it brings about the complete union of hearts, minds, emotions, and bodies of two human beings who love each other so deeply they have committed themselves to each other for life. As we have seen, their coming together pictures the total union which will someday be achieved between Christ and the true Church of God. Ephesians 5:22-25. This sanctified union of man and woman in marriage is so important that God devoted one of the 10 commandments to protecting it. Our Creator commanded, "You shall not commit adultery," Exodus 20:14. And Jesus Christ enlarged or magnified this command, making it all the more binding. "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Matthew 5:27-28. However, if sex is used in marriage as a reaffirmation of love, of trust, of the spirit of giving to each mate to the other, then it is a beautiful and sacred thing in the sight of God. And frankly, it should not be cheapened and made to seem coarse and common by its constant display, as in modern films, television, and other media. This only serves to drag down into the gutter what God intended to be a supreme physical expression of married love, picturing Christ and the church. As I hope we can all see, Satan is devilishly clever in the way he can degrade and cheapen some of God's blessings by inciting the misuse of something, and by deceiving millions of people into misusing the gift of sex. Satan is able to tear down the God-given basis for all decent society, the home and the family. That is exactly what is happening to most of Western society at this time. On the other hand, God wants young married couples to love each other to the full. He inspired Revelation tells us that marriage is honorable among all and the bed undefiled, but fornicators and adulterers God will judge. Hebrews 13:4. Again, the Bible instructs us, "Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breasts satisfy you at all times, and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced in the arms of a seductress?" Proverbs 5:18-20. When a young couple first start courting, they usually spend a lot of time in romantic activities. They will take long walks under the moonlight, they will eat out at romantic cafes, perhaps go dancing, hold hands, laugh together, and try to fully understand and appreciate this other person whom they are considering as a life partner. They will nearly always be clean, neat, well-groomed, and perhaps wearing a fine perfume or cologne. In every way, they will put their best foot forward. But after marriage and the honeymoon period, most couples begin to let down. The husband may not bathe properly before coming to bed. The wife may let her hair look like a mop or wear dowdy dresses around her husband. She may forget to bathe or perhaps to put on a pretty dress and look special to him when he comes home from work. Nowadays, with so many wives in the workforce, this is even harder for a woman to do. However, both husband and wife must try to keep the fires burning in their romance. They should try to do all they can to continue to show each other the special attentions and courtesies they did when they were courting and when they were first married. A loving husband will kiss his wife goodbye in the morning, give her a special hug and kiss when he returns from work, thank her and kiss her again for dessert after the evening meal. Perhaps he will help her put the dishes away, sneak up and hug her while she is standing by the sink, etc. Each mate should try to lavish affection and appreciation on each other. Then the finale will come very easily and naturally, for the two mates will be loving each other all day long, and in a physical way, it will make their marriage a joyous and beautiful thing. Give a great deal of thought and attention to this absolutely vital aspect of your marriage. Do not let anything get in the way of building this kind of loving, romantic atmosphere in your home. Do not let job worries interfere. Do not let concerns over the children, over keeping the house in perfect condition, or over anything stop you from building within your home and marriage a special romance and joy that your Creator intended. Husbands, do not be fussy, grumpy, or demanding toward your wife. Love and encourage her and cause her to want to respond to your constant affections and kindness. Try to give yourself to your mate in every way that you can and make her life full and joyous. Wives, put forth the time and effort to be your husband's sweetheart. Return his affection and try to inspire and encourage him in every way you can. Within God's laws, try in every way to make him feel happy and fulfilled. Smile at him, kid with him, kiss him back passionately, and make him glad that he married you. And that's important, that you were chosen. So remind him why he chose you. Show him all the good things. In all of these ways and more, each of you should learn to genuinely love and to cherish your mate. Get down on your knees in prayer and ask God to help you be the loving mate that you ought to be, and give him grateful thanks, providing you with a lifelong partner, lover, friend, and companion with whom you can fully share the blessings of this physical existence. Ask God to help you put to use all of the above keys to a joyous marriage. Then, in spite of the trials and tests that come to all of us, you will have someone who is truly special to encourage you and help you along the way. And in this God-ordained union that we call marriage, you will be learning in a remarkable way how to obey the second great commandment from our Creator. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:39. Thank you if you're still watching this. I'm really hoping that we can bring back the love and feeling in godly ordained marriages. And if your marriage needs some help, you can always reach out at homewinds.consulting@gmail.com so we can talk about your situation and how I can help. I hope you have a blessed day.